I'm probably in traditional Essex outfit at the moment, to be honest with you. So it's like you got to have your trousers a little bit short, right?
Yeah.
No socks. It would be like the drain pipe trousers, just cut probably 2 inches above the Gucci loafers.
Okay.
You know
Wow.
what I mean?
Yeah.
No socks, tight top. I can't do that anymore, unfortunately.
What is the best thing, in your opinion, about Essex?
I think Essex is like, it's kind of like poor man's Marbella, you know, poor man's Costa del Sol. You've got different parts of Essex. You know, you've got your upmarket Essex, you've got your downmarket Essex, you got your spray tans, you got your real tans, you know, you got your fake teeth, your real teeth, you know, you've got other body parts as well. So I think people in Essex, like a lot of people from Essex have moved out from East London. So you get a lot of good people, you know, you get a lot of honest old school people in Essex.
Yeah.
You get your Flash Harrys, of course, you know, and then you get your well-to-do people as well. But Essex remains one of those places where you say to people, whenever you go somewhere posh, right? And I was the other day, I was at a golf club in Surrey and they said, "Have you come far, sir?" And I said, "From Essex." And he just looked at me and went, "I knew that." You know what I mean? You just know, don't you, when someone's from Essex? And I suppose I am the Essex wide boy as well, you know?
You said it, not me. You know?
Yeah,
yeah. So I guess, well, we've asked the best thing. So, I mean, the natural next step is, what is the worst thing about Essex?
I suppose the worst thing is probably the reputation, to be honest with you. I mean, but when our office, where I am now, we're in Brentwood, which is really the birthplace of Towie.
Yeah.
You know, and Brentwood used to be sort of more of a village, really. And as it developed over the years and as Towie came in, it became a tourist spot. You know, people were using the Holiday Inn down the road, which is where we were for the fight camp, as like they were turning up by the bus loads from up north at the weekend. And they were going up the high street, going into shops, you know, buying plastic bags and buying bronzers and fake tans. And then they were going to the Sugar Hut at night. And it was total carnage.
Yeah.
You know, so I suppose that's the worst thing, is that it's become like almost like a celebrity haunt rather than a picturesque, you know, county, which it is as well. So, but it's put it on the map in some respects, but probably, you know, the worst part of Essex was the explosion of Towie and the fact that it become a tourist attraction for people from all over the country, basically coming for a night out.
Yeah. Fair. That is it's got to be a bit of a culture shock for everyone living there, you know, still. What about misconceptions? What do you think is like a big misconception about Essex?
Like I said, I think that it's a lot of genuine people. Like there's a big family element to it. And, you know, when you talk about sort of old school, I mean, you know, when you talk about Mafia, the game, and you talk about obviously that old school family element, there is a lot of that in Essex as well, because as I said, the move from East London by a number of people from the county, you know, people made money in East London and moved to Essex. You know, first of all, they moved to Ilford and Romford. Then they moved to Brentwood. Now they're moving to Chelmsford and further out towards Colchester. They're just escaping all the time.
Yeah.
So I think the misconception is that actually it's full of good people. It's full of honest people. It's full of hardworking people. But it just happens to be full of some flash people as well, and some that like to dress up and talk a little bit funny. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is fair. I guess, but everywhere has that as well, don't they? I guess it's a good thing that you mentioned the dressing up, because this is the next one. If Essex had a traditional kind of outfit, what is it?
Well, I'm probably in traditional Essex outfit at the moment, to be honest with you. So it's like you got to have your trousers a little bit short, right?
Yeah.
No socks. And actually, back in the day, it would be like the drain pipe trousers, just cut probably 2 inches above the Gucci loafers.
Okay,
You know what I mean? Yeah. No socks, tight top. I can't do that anymore, unfortunately. So, but I'm 41, and every now and again, I just throw in a little bit of Essex. I guess nowadays it's like jeans, slim fit jeans, blazer, shirt. You see a few Gucci belts floating around as well, you know, as you do. But that's like your standard attire. Women, not a lot, to be honest with you. High heels and, you know, probably not a lot of clothes. I don't really go out much anymore, but I every now and again drive around and see the sights of Essex. And, yeah, they like to dress up in Essex. They do.
Would it be fair to say, do you feel like you kind of embrace you're proud to be from Essex, like you embrace that?
Yeah, I've been. I mean, I've lived here all my life, so for me, it's home. To be honest, I think the best way to describe it is I've had the opportunity to go to a lot of places. I've had the opportunity to be or live in a lot of places, but this has always been home to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm as happy here as I might be in New York or LA. I mean, it might sound quite bizarre, but that's got to be a good thing. You know, it's got to make you realise that, you know, people, I think home is home, and this is home for me. And yeah, I am. I like, you know, when we did the fight camp here in the office, I was proud to put that event on in Essex, in Brentwood, because it was a worldwide event and people were tuning in from around the world, knowing that it was broadcast from Brentwood in Essex. So that's good too.
Yeah, absolutely. So slightly less serious one here as we move on. If Essex had to have a national anthem, what would it be?
God, blimey. Might be Sweet Caroline, actually. I mean,
Really? Yeah.
You know that when I do a show, we like to bust that one out before a main event. Yeah, but I think some of like the old school sort of dance tracks and garage tracks, and you know, that reminds me of my childhood growing up. You know, going out, you know, Iron Apple in the summer, and then back in places like Charlie Chan's and Epping Forest Country Club growing up as well. The nightlife in Essex when I was like 18, 19, 20 was unbelievable. Thursday down Charlie Chan's in Walthamstow, Friday at Faces nightclub in Gants Hill, Saturday at Epping Forest Country Club, and Sunday back to Charlie Chan's. That was your 4 nights out on the spin. And how great was it then at that age? 0 hangovers. You know, you could go out on Friday, get rat-arsed, wake up Saturday, you're on the phone to them, like, what time are we meeting today? Now it takes me 2 months to recover from one night out. So, you know, I miss those days. And, you know, the anthem, there's probably a lot of like old school garage anthems that remind me of Essex, but, you know, people like to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And at least back then as well, you know, there wasn't the embarrassing mobile phone evidence of.
Oh, mate, I talk about that all the time with my mates. I mean, that would have been a disaster for us. Disaster. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, not just the messages you might be sending, you know, young ladies you were courting, but more importantly, out in a nightclub, being a complete prat at 18 or 19 or 20, thinking you were the dog's nuts, you know, dancing around. And yeah, that would have been, social media for me back then would have been a disaster, to be honest. You think No Context Hearn's hot right now? You've seen me at 18 or 19. Would have been a global viral sensation.
Really? Okay. Well, I think every 18-year-old is thankful. Well, not nowadays, but every 18-year-old from the past is thankful that there was no social media. So what is, obviously, like, you know, as you said, a lot of people who live in Essex now came from East London. But is there a difference between people, let's say, generally from London and people from Essex?
Well, there's people from East London and Essex. I mean, there's a lot of them who've lived in both places. Very similar people, in my opinion. They're loyal. They've probably got a little bit of a temper every now and again, and they sort of get a bit, you know, not violent, but they do like to stand up for themselves. But strong family values. I think that's the key thing. And people from Essex and East London are very, very similar, in my opinion. Very different to people from Surrey or people from Kent. You know, you get people and from areas. If you grew up in, I don't know, Millwall or Bermondsey, you know, those kind of places, and you made money, you moved out to Surrey to Kent, right? If you made money in West London, in Hammersmith or, you know, Ladbroke Grove or wherever you were, you moved out to Esher or Ascot. You know what I mean? If you made money in Islington or somewhere in North London, you moved out to Hertfordshire. If you made money in Canning Town or Bethnal Green, you moved out to Essex. So, and that's really that's the way of the world. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, you know, people from East London are my kind of people, you know, proper people. Although I wasn't born there, my dad's from East London, my mum's from East London, my nan's from East London, my grand's from East London. And, you know, the world has changed a lot in terms of people's roles in life and society. To give you an example, when my mum married my dad, she often says now, like, it was just that my job is to put food on the table for him, not in terms of paying for it, but when he got home every night, dinner was on the table. I would make sure that his shirt, and still to this day, his shirt is ironed to go to work in the morning and hung on the door. I mean, those days are long gone, aren't they? I mean, now I'm ironing the dresses. You know what I mean? It's a complete 360. And listen, it's a good thing that things have moved forward, but I don't look at those periods of saying, oh, women weren't respected in those days. That was not their role in society, but that was what they wanted to do. It wasn't like they were saying, oh, I can't believe I've got to look after my husband. That's how things were. It's quite difficult to understand that now. And when you talk to, even if I talk to my wife now about that, she's like, that's disgraceful. I'm like, no, that was life in East London, and they can't, if I'm in Tesco's or wherever I am shopping and my old man calls me up and he says, where are you? And I say, I'm in Tesco's doing a bit of shopping. He goes to me, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm getting dinner for tonight. She, oh my God. He said, oh, I can't believe it. And that's the old school mentality. But the old school mentality from East London and Essex, I'm not saying that's a great mentality, but it's proper. Every Sunday, without fail, we go to my mum and dad's for a family lunch. And if you're not there, it's frowned upon.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I will get home tonight and I will make sure we all sit down as a family with my kids. They'll be on their phones and I'll be telling them to get on their phones. But that's the kind of feeling that sort of comes out of that area.
Mm-hmm. If I had, let's say, I found myself dropped off in Essex at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and had 8 hours to kill, how would you recommend I spend the day?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, look, I might plug a couple of places that I go, but, I would say to you, we're out of the pandemic in this conversation, right?
Yeah, so, theoretically, yeah.
So I would say to you, we're going to start you off. We're going to go for a little bit of lunch at a place called Lot 75 in Shenfield, which is owned by some friends of mine. Great place, great food. You sit outside there. I wouldn't say you were on the marina on the beach. You're actually on the main road of Shenfield, but when the sun shines, you could be anywhere in the world.
Close your eyes.
You'll be in there. You'll have a couple of Peronis. You'll have a bit of lunch, maybe a little bit of veal Milanese or some spaghetti, some pasta or whatever. And then you're going to have a few more beers, and then you're going to head over to Chigwell, actually, right? And you're going to go to a pub called The Owl, which is owned by another one of my friends in Epping Forest. You can sit outside there in the forest, have a couple of beers as well. And then you're going to head down to Sheesh in Chigwell, right, which is quite well renowned. And a friend of mine, Dylan, runs a brilliant restaurant there. And you're going to probably stay there all night. If it was a Wednesday, they do a great night, goes into a party upstairs as well. Great food. I don't think you'd come home, No, you wouldn't come home that night, because what happens in Essex is when the night goes young, you're given the option. Do you go home or do you get a cab into the West End, right? Now, it's only 35, 40 minutes. As I get older, that's too long. I'll be asleep. But, in your young, fresh days, you'll get in a cab into the West End and you will go to Cirque or you will go to Sway or you will go to another one of these nightclubs. And then you wake up and you do it all over again, But like I say, I couldn't guarantee that a young lady wouldn't break your heart, So, and you probably wouldn't go home either, Wayne, to be honest with you.
That's a hazard. That's a hazard that happens, I guess,
Yes.
What famous native do you believe that Essex people are most proud of?
Well, I went to school with Frank Lampard. He was in the year above me. And I think he's done unbelievably well. I mean, we both had famous fathers, right? So we both had the struggle of, he was Frank Lampard's son, because his dad was called Frank Lampard, and I was Barry Hearn's son.
Yeah.
Now, we've both done well. He's made a few more quid than me. But, it was always like, I think we should be very proud of what he's done, because he was actually a good student as well. He's a very good person. Bright guy.
Yeah.
When he left school and went to West Ham, he was a little bit chubby and everyone said he's only got in the club because of his dad. And he had years where people were giving him stick. And actually the player that he ended up becoming was quite sensational, to be honest with you. I mean, he's a legend, So So I think he's done great. There's some interesting people went to the same school. Griff Rhys-Jones, Noel Edmonds, quite a few people really come out of Essex and done well. I think there's a lot of businessmen who have emerged out of Essex and done well because I think their work ethic is really good. You know, I know we're talking about the game Mafia, but I'll also plug my book, Relentless, that comes out at the end of October, which is the same kind of thing. It's about that work ethic and that mentality of, you know, when things get a little bit tough, you wake up an hour earlier and you go to bed an hour later. And you grind and you just graft. And I think that's something that's really in the people here as well, you know?
Yeah. Every area has their kind of, you know, their slang, their phrases and stuff. What is your favorite Essex phrase? Well, preferably suitable for work.
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of it derives out of the East End, you know? So a lot of it is rhyming slang, but I think "all right, son" is like the standard meet and greet. You know, if you're all right, son, all right, son. You know, I was actually my daughter asked me to do a message for someone at her school who likes my memes, right? So this morning I said, I can't remember what his name was, John. So I said, John, loving the TikToks, my old son, and she's like, my old son, what's that? You know, and again, like the old school thing where if you're in a restaurant and a lady's serving you or something like that, you might say, thank you, darling.
Yeah.
No, like my dad would. But actually now that's kind of frowned on a little bit. But if I said in front of my wife, oh, thank you, darling, she'd go, darling, what? You know, but they've got to understand it's the old school. All right, son. All right, darling. You know, it is what it is. It's the white boy mentality.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the general lingo in Essex.
Yeah, big time. To move away from Essex, Joshua Fury obviously is the fight at the moment that everyone is kind of really, really keen to see. People want to see these sorts of fights happening in the UK. What is kind of happening? What's stopping that from happening apart from the pandemic? But I mean, in terms from a boxing business point of view.
Well, money, really. You know, whenever you make a fight like that, it's really the one opportunity for both guys to, yes, create a legacy, but quite frankly, it's the biggest financial fight out there, you know, maybe of all time. And when you deal with the fighter and their teams, people just sometimes shouldn't be naive enough to just think you can go to a fighter and say, do you want to take half the money to do it in England, but the fans will love it and it will be great for the fight? Like, business and life doesn't work like that. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't take less money to do it in England. They would, but they wouldn't take half the money to do it in England. So you're in a situation where a lot of territories, you know, we did a show in Saudi Arabia, you've got all the countries in the Middle East, you've got China, you've got other countries as well, would pay a significant site fee to bring the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship to their region. And I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't explore that and give the fighters the opportunity to make that kind of money. Now, we all sit there sometimes, don't we? Oh, it's a joke. You know, these blokes are going in there for our entertainment and having a fight with 8-ounce gloves that can actually result in physical damage and harm. We shouldn't really, you know, we had the same thing. We went to Saudi Arabia, you know, the sort of PC brigade onto me. Well, how do you feel about doing a fight? I said, I'll tell you how I feel about it. Who am I to tell these guys where they shouldn't fight for money? Because let's be honest, you know, you've seen fighters lose their lives. You've seen fighters be damaged physically. Yeah. So when they're putting themselves at risk like this, they have to maximize this opportunity and we have to respect them and give them the reward they deserve. Now, of course, between two Brits fighting for the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship, in an ideal scenario, 100% of the time, they should be fighting in Britain. And they might do, to be honest with you. Well, at the moment, don't look very likely. We've got no crowds. But, you know, in an ideal situation when the world returns to normal, but we also cannot ignore the interest and the financial offers coming in from other territories as well. And also don't forget it's the World Heavyweight Championship. You know, it's not the British Heavyweight Championship. But like I said, in an ideal world, and we may, certainly one of the two fights, I think it's really important that one of the two fights happens in the UK.
Yeah, yeah. Great stuff. Eddie, thanks very much for
taking. No worries. Cheers, Wayne.